Psychiatry for a Mad World. An extract from the book. Political Bias, Power Cliques and Psychopathy. In the run-up to the 1997 UK general election, the Daily Mail newspaper ran a story about how the then leader of the Labour Party, Tony Blair's Smile, was losing votes for his party. The paper claimed that a survey had revealed that people found him, quote, two-faced and insincere, end quote, and, quote, smarmy and smug, end quote. An interesting finding, you might think, until we look at the actual statistics. It turns out that only Conservative supporters were polled, so naturally there was going to be a bias against the Labour Party. Not only that, but the actual figures revealed there was something untoward going on. The study found that only 15% of Tory voters found him, quote, two-faced and insincere, end quote. An irrelevant 8% found him, quote, smarmy and smug, end quote. And only 7% didn't like his, quote, grin. To put that another way, 85% of Tory voters did not find him two-faced and insincere, 92% did not find him smarmy and smug, and 93% were indifferent about his smile. For people who were not Conservative supporters, the figures may have been even more supportive of Labour. But that didn't stop the paper running with a headline that suggested Blair's grin was a vote loser. The paper had massaged the figures to show Labour in a bad light. Note that the paper used the word grin in the story instead of smile. The intention there was to get the reader to dislike Tony Blair. A person who grins may in some way be devious and wicked, whereas a person who smiles is friendly and kind. Papers may not always lie outright, but in the choice of language such as this, they are manipulating the reader. Clearly, throughout the article, the paper was not accurately representing the whole truth. And since truth is the cure for mental illness, we need to be concerned. Newspapers routinely lie for political gain. Lying, as we know, is a major symptom of psychopathy, and politically biased papers are riddled with psychopathy. Why do they do that? We are looking again at symptoms of the psychopathic power clique. We know that groups pull together into cliques which share common values, and we saw in our chapter on politics how, broadly speaking, people tend to divide into the haves and the have-nots. Those two groups are in mortal genetic combat, competing for money in order to obtain resources which will provide the gratification and fitness benefits which they seek. And we know that those two groups are organised enough to elect representatives into government. Newspaper proprietors are little different to the man on the street. They will still have inside them the same genetic drives which the rest of us are subject to. The genetic psychopathy inside the newspaper proprietors will steer them to promoting their own values. And, if they are wealthy and greedy, they will naturally act to defend their wealth by attacking the have-nots. They do that by undermining the political opposition. And if they can't use truth to attack their opponents, they will happily resort to lying. Glancing over tabloid newspapers is enough to show that the lying which goes on for political gain is rife. In lying to the readership, the papers are altering the perceptions of their audience. Readers of right-wing papers will come to perceive left-wing politicians as all bad, and, in equal measure, readers of left-wing papers will come to perceive right-wing politicians as all bad. Since the perceptions of the readers are being taken away from reality, the readers are being given the mental illness of delusion. As I said previously, to actively damage the mental health of an individual is of no lesser consequence than meting out physical harm, and often psychological harm can be much worse. In damaging the mental health of millions of people, it is clear that the management of such papers should be prosecuted and given appropriate sentences. If the papers are doing such deliberate harm to so many people, in true psychopathic fashion, does that mean that the readership are innocent victims who we need to protect? No, that's not the case. In fact, the readership want to be deluded in this fashion. People, as a general rule, tend to buy papers which support their own power clique, be that the haves or the have-nots. They like the copy in their chosen paper because it reinforces their own values, however questionable. A wealthy individual doesn't want to hear that the wealthy should be taxed more, because such a person is a selfish psychopath. Similarly, people in poverty are striving to obtain some of the wealth from the hands of the wealthy. They also want more. People in poverty want to read a paper which promotes fairer distribution of wealth. Remember that poorer people can still be psychopaths, even though fair wealth distribution is a morally justifiable goal.